Yep, everybody, the future is now. I'll try and raise I'll try and talk. It's very strange, everyone, with your heads in, and I can hear all the sound around me. As I say, I'm John Stokdyk, the editor of AccountingWEB. Did any of you come to a similar talk to this last year? Okay, well, that's just as well. I could just say, well, actually, the future is just the same this year as it was last year, but no, there is new stuff. As Claire said, this is scheduled to take about half an hour, but as I say, because I will be going over things I've talked about for several years, you can try and trip me up as you go along. So if you've got a question on a particular theme at the time, if you put your hand up, we'll try and see if we can conquer the sound effects. So do join in, and again, we can follow it down any paths that you're particularly interested in. So that's me. The first thing, that there is so much change going around, and it just seems to get faster and faster. So the basic message here is get used to it. You can just go around the hall and see the physical manifestations of all the new different programs and things. And so I'm not going to be able to cover it all. That's why I said let's put your hand up if you want to talk about a particular area. I will go through what I think are sort of the big having the most effect on the profession. And by the end, it's going to be just going away with, don't be frightened of it. You've got to keep up and educate yourself about the potential possibilities, but also don't go out to the far other end of the scale. So it's just coming up with some common sense principles about how you cope with all this stuff, and particularly the technology side of it. And as I say, if you don't manage to stick your hand up, remember there will be Q&As at the end, and there's microphones that will pass amongst anyone if you want to talk. So that's the start. Again, how many people here are members of AccountingWEB? That's good to see. So I don't have to tell you so much about me. You can come on the site and see all about that. By background, I'm a technology journalist, and as a result, a lot of what we do on AccountingWEB is covering the software and technology market. We also, some of you may have taken part in our software satisfaction program, where we ask you to tell us what you think of your software. And having done that, going back to 2001, we have this great sort of archive of data on what kind of the uptake has been, how different vendors have done. They've got, some of them have gone through slumps and come back. I could possibly say who those were. But as I say, we've got a lot of background, and then some of the best information we get on AccountingWEB comes from the Any Answers section, where people within the profession, you can actually talk to each other on the site. And I had a guy on the stand earlier who said the recommendations, he actually named 3 different programs he'd chosen and selected based on what other AccountingWEB members had recommended to him. So that using every tool you've got to research the market and find out what you can is one of those principles I'd advise. Again, what you may not know me, I've basically grew up with technology. I was born about the same time as the modern computer era in Silicon Valley. And the great rage back then was time sharing. IBM's Thomas Watson, he once famously predicted there'd only be about need for 5 computers in the world. But by the 60s, entrepreneurs were just buying mainframes, setting them up, and renting out time on it. And what you would do is you'd have a big teletype terminal there. You'd take the old-fashioned telephone handset, and the modem was a thing that you stuck in. It was a sound box. You put it in there, and it would send the bleeps through to the mainframe. That's actually my sister sitting at a teletype terminal there, and I think I'm making sure that she's entering my program to add 2 and 2 correctly, that she's doing it properly. Now 40 years on, we've got the cloud, and wouldn't you know that the capacity of those machines has just gone stratospheric. the speed at which it runs, the capability, what it can do has changed. And as I say, that's probably one server is probably taking care of all those particular users. But the underlying concept is still the same as time sharing. They've gone back to the distributed computing. You're just renting a little bit of processing time on the central data system, but it's coming to you over the internet rather than a direct telephone link. So that all that's all things as they are. But I'd like to sort of just, this will be as techie and nerdy as we get, so I hope you're all comfortable with that. One of the things that has emerged in the cloud era is the idea of virtualization. So when you add another user to a cloud-based data center, they don't actually install a new server just to take care of you. They use this, they basically write one in software. It's entirely conceptual computer. So you'll have your old core processing system there, so that will be your server. By adding the software virtualization layer, they can ring fence a little virtual machine for your use. And this is how you run it, and you'll use all your resources in there, your cloud applications and your storage. You'll run in software. Now the reason I borrowed this schematic is because that's actually what's sort of happening organizationally as well. You've all probably heard the phrase, the virtual organization. So that same computing concepts kind of crept into the actual business world and business organization. So here's your sort of company secretary and accounts department and production unit. Your firm will have those core tasks. They keep the organization ticking over, but you'll actually have your own organization virtual. You'll have the recruitment consultancies, the specialists, outside suppliers and outsourcers you go to, and your organization, you may only need a special project team for one particular client for a particular time. So say a software implementation you've pointed them towards and put them in the hands of a software reseller or systems integrator to do that for them. So that's changing the shape of the profession and also the way people expect to work in it. So there's a lot more room for lone wolves and specialists and boutiques, and you'll need to adapt your firm. Maybe you carry on doing it yourself, but again, following the virtualization and the cloud idea is just keep what you need at the core and bring in those resources and pay for them only when you need them, rather than having a huge infrastructure. So that's a challenge to your business model as you go forward. And another buzz phrase for your, if you were playing Accountex budget bingo, you may have heard. Has anyone here heard the phrase big data used this morning? Yep. Okay. Well, tick that one off your budget box. But it's again, it is a buzz phrase, but it's something we need to be aware of, and I think we'll begin to work out how does that actually affect you. Now, big data has come about because we have all those cloud-based services from Google and Amazon and Microsoft, and millions of businesses who are using them and having their own servers are producing petabytes of data. And a petabyte is a million terabytes or a billion gigabytes. So it's a lot of users. I think I read in Wikipedia 2 petabytes takes up about the entire annual output of the US Research Academy. So all the research papers published in the US is about 2 petabytes. So what big data is about is analyzing all those disparate and growing data streams and looking for the underlying trends. Now the great pioneer of big data was the Tesco loyalty card. It's about 10, 15 years ago, and they really did get quite a lot of competitive advantage just because they were able to configure the layouts and product mixes for their stores based on the most profitable lines for that demographic. So, it might mean more six packs or multi packs of beer in a more industrial area in the north compared to the sort of slightly finer wine selection in the Thames Valley. Other supermarkets are all pretty much doing the same thing now. So Tesco's actually lost that competitive edge, and they're not doing quite so well now. But again, what can you potentially do? It's not just about supermarkets and mega corporations. The same data streams can be used in smaller businesses. Well, and I guess I like to think of it as kind of management reporting with knobs on, and it is really what should be meat and drink to accountants. So what you'll be able to do is take your analytical skills and working with a business, look at the data streams, try and identify. It should be possible to identify the real drivers of what makes a business successful. You've identified the drivers, you've probably got data streams you can then measure and monitor, and hey presto, devise KPIs that they can look at and you can measure and report to them on, and they can get a much more sort of relevant and immediate sense of where they're going. So on AccountingWEB, we look at the site traffic and actually the site traffic is a fairly raw and clumsy measure of how I'm doing. But actually, the questions that have been posed in any answers, by analysing those and categorising them, they tell me what's on the mind of accountants, and I'll actually adapt our editorial programme just based on that kind of little big data kind of project. So I've talked about applying KPIs in your to businesses. Are you all practitioners here? Mostly practitioners? Okay, yeah, no. Are you applying analytical and business intelligence techniques in your own firms yet? Okay, it's one of my great messages for accountants is, physician, heal thyself. So you're getting a lot of this information through. So the global figures of your client turnovers, if you are maybe running CRM systems, and you can report on the kind of tax. It's not me feeding back, I hope, is it? Okay. If you can report on the tax brackets of your clients and look at what they're in, that may again be able to help you spot the highest value clients, or perhaps niche services that if you actually expanded across your client base. So that's the challenge of big data I'd like to see to you, is actually embrace it and work out ways of applying it in your firm, even if it is just maybe doing a slightly more graphical and immediate reporting arrangement for your clients. So we get on to cloud. This is the word again. You've probably heard Stuart Lynn, the Sage Technology Officer, Chief Technology Officer, came up to the stage earlier, and he told me that everybody at Accountex is talking about cloud, and that's no different for Sage as for everyone else. So cloud is all around us. You also, of course, have the fact that cloud is device independent, so you can use your tablet or your smartphone to always be available. You're always getting your email. If you're using a cloud account system or you're generating cloud reports, it's there all the time. You're available to your clients 24/7. So some of the firms who take part in our Practice Excellence Awards, they will now pretty much answer queries and always be there for their clients. That's how they really make a difference. It's no longer the 9 to 5, come and see me at my office. They'll take personal phone calls. Some people, it allows you to be much more mobile and go out and visit your clients face to face and in their own environment, and you can learn much more about them. So cloud, I'll return to cloud later, because it is sort of the underlying change having the most dramatic impact at the moment. But I'd like to again detour to some of the social, regulatory, demographic changes that are also affecting. It won't be as visible here today. You can't look at it at a stand. But do any of you share strangely disconcerting feeling that accountants, like policemen, they're all getting younger every day? Is that? Yeah, I guess that's a middle-aged man's lament, really. They're not quite as young as that yet, but all of the incoming accountants are what we call digital natives. They've grown up with the internet. They're on Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat. This is just all those things some of us think are, slightly what is the new hip buzz? They don't worry, they just know it backwards. So they're more tech savvy, they're a lot less hierarchical, and they're probably a lot more mentally adept at fitting into the short-term, the Mission Impossible project team. And a lot of you here may have come through the much more sort of traditional accountancy training, into partnership processes and guild-like training regimes. That's going to be possibly less satisfying and less attractive to the younger intakes. And the other thing is both the younger accountants and the clients you're serving, they're used to a certain level of convenience and utility and speed from their services they get through all the cloud in Amazon and the like. If they're not getting it from you, either as clients or employees, and they're quite possibly going to be more prone to being lured away by somebody who can give them the experience they want. So, there's nothing sadder than middle-aged people trying to stay trendy, but you have to try and keep up. The other great trend that's changing is it keeps you in work, so that's a great thing for accountants, but regulatory change and regulations have been in turmoil for several years. I'm quite curious, how did you all survive the first year of RTI? Are you still standing? You're here today, so you're not in total crisis over your end-of-year reports, but that was a huge burden that basically the government chucked in the profession's lap. RTI might just about be settling down. I think there's still wrongly targeted late filing notices coming out of HMRC's computer, but they can sort that out. Hopefully the system will settle down. But you've got pensions, auto-enrollment coming and things. Again, is that a significant workload or element of the people you're working with yet? So you've got firms that are staging, we'll enjoy that for the next 3 years, and that's going to put pressure on payroll services if you provide them. Although it also means you're possibly got an advising opportunity there or a relationship building thing, so to help the people choose the right pension provider. Elsewhere, then you've got the government doing its campaign to eradicate red tape and lessen the administrative burden. And as I was saying last year, the things like cash accounting and the big jumps in audit thresholds we've seen a year or so ago, that's taking compliance work away from you. There's less you can do in that area. So the message, again, if you go to all the AVN tutorials, every practice development guru here will be telling you you've got to standardize, streamline, and make compliance as efficient and profitable as possible, and spend more and more of your time doing advisory work. So that KPI stuff I said, if you're not doing it now, try and experiment with a few clients, because that is how you're going to keep your clients loyal and stay with you. And a good thing to bear in mind is technology can help you do this. We have the tools, and dare I say it, it's the cloud, the always on, anytime, anywhere, any place computing model means you can be more flexible. You can work more directly with your clients. As I say, just for a bit of techie, I hope you all have worked out by now in the old computer network diagrams, whenever you can connect systems, the programmers just draw a big cloud in the air to represent the internet, and that's what's serving yourselves and your clients. And of course, the great thing about cloud is it's a platform for collaboration with your clients. It's no more they're not sending you the Sage file on a disk or emailing you a backup. In the cloud, you can look directly at them. You can actually sort of talk with them over the numbers online. You can maybe if they've made a mistake, rather than you making an adjustment, just say, this is how we cancel that transaction. Next time, do it like this. So you get into a bit of training, and you're with them there rather than the once or twice a year encounter under the old sort of batch tax return accounts process. And that's another point, as someone who's lived through a few technology generations, is we always, as humans, make this mistake of we're like military generals. We're always fighting the last war. So a lot of people have tended to embrace the cloud as, right, well, it seems like a lot more user-friendly way of doing accounts. Let's do our online bookkeeping there and stop. I mean, how many of you here, we see some hands who are using cloud accounts? Okay, are you? That's a very good, you've actually just proved that it really has taken over. That was about 30% last year when I asked the audience. It's over 60% of the audience now. So you're using online bookkeeping. Do any of you do sort of online report? Do you actually maybe share the reports with them online and collaborate more directly with them there? Okay. Less of you, but that's a good percent. You two are the future. That's what it allows you to do. It's already here. Exactly. You don't need to come. And again, the idea is you could work with them. You could do the analysis with them of what the key numbers are, and then almost like facilitate them understanding what their company drivers are, and help them design their own KPIs that they'll then buy into and actually pay attention to. The great thing about the tablet as well, it's a brilliant present. You don't have to do it online. You can meet them virtually, but don't neglect the old face-to-face encounter. And a tablet, again, is a great way to consume the numbers and show them to them. So there's all sorts of things the tools will allow you to do. And again, when we look at the people who win our Practice Excellence Awards, these are the kinds of things they're doing. One firm, Milstead Langdon, has got a whole business intelligence team, and their task is purely ends up producing a standard. They use Sage and Excel actually, but what they'll ultimately create is a KPI report for their clients, and they'll deliver it to the client in whatever way the client wants. So those are the firms who are actually keeping their clients happy and building the relationship. So I must commend that to you. And I talked about how we're always living the last war, and you're always shaped by the first kind of technology you use. So anyone in accountancy, it means you probably used Windows and a PC and programs like Sage, classic desktop software to run your firms. If you are going to stay based around compliance work and be mainly in an office doing tax returns and final accounts, fine. Don't change a technology for the sake of it. If it's doing the job and it fits the strategy and the business model you want, principle number one, use what you like and what works well for you. But it is actually, people like Sage itself is committed to delivering all the practice tools, not just bookkeeping, but accounts production. There's actually a working cloud accounts production program, hiding in a cubby hole on the stand here. Tax returns, both Sage and Iris and other developers in this hall today are planning to deliver these tools. You'll be lucky to get it all for tax season, November, December, but it's a close run thing, and you really could run your firm out of a laptop anytime, anywhere you like. And it's just got so many benefits. Again, that thing of the clients inputting their own data. If the earlier you capture the data, the better, the more accurate it is, and the less rework you do. And finally, you've also, cloud tools eliminate. Must be probably the biggest irritant you have is the multiple versions of your desktop programs to make sure the backup works, and just physically mailing the things back and forth and they can carry on using their books. All that is taken out, and that's that is the future of accountancy, but it may not be here in the next, in the current tax year. While I've been researching all of this, this technology and looking at demographic trends, I started spotting 3 different ways of people who are using it. So let's start with my people first, and I won't make any assumptions about your ages and inclinations. But on AccountingWEB, we've got a little phalanx of middle-aged men like me who love technology, and it's not only, but mainly men. And they will just jump on the newest trend just because they love to find out about it and play with it, and possibly to the detriment of their practices unless they become IT consultants. The people I think who are really making the running are Generation X people. So we think that's 35 to 45 people born 60 to 80. I'm guessing as a rough generational guess. They're realizing the profession has changed. They can set up their own firms with these tools, and they're using them specifically to support remote teams. And dare I say it, if I'm looking at one of my exemplars in the room, a lot of times people leading this are women who've had babies and they want to come back into the profession. The firms that they used to work for just can't quite accommodate. You know, accountancy is a mobile, flexible lifestyle. So they're embracing the technology. They don't need that hierarchy and structure anymore. They can create it themselves and run these professions. And I've talked to some amazingly successful accountants in the States, and it seems in the UK. We're doing this. The final thing that we're seeing, and this is probably a real stickler in the craw to established accountants, is kids coming out of, not quite university, but very young, tech-savvy accountants are realizing they can do it too. And we get young pre-qualified accountants on AccountingWEB sort of saying, how can I set up? Can I set up as a practice? Or how do I set up as a practice without my ACCA yet? And they get hammered by the existing members, but that's what they're aspiring to, and the technology lets them. And dare I say, if the professional qualification doesn't let them, if they've got the business savvy, and a lot of them do, the business advice role, there's nothing stopping them doing that. No institution can stop that. So that's, I think, a challenge for the institutions and the professional bodies that they need to accept. That's easy. Now, that's all been the propaganda. And the thing I would have to say is don't be the classic IT enthusiast who just pursues tech for tech's sake, because unless you're a consultancy, your firm will suffer. And there are some drawbacks. Security, actually, everybody's probably accepts the security of the cloud is less of a problem, because Amazon, Google, Sage, all the big vendors, they are professional computer service providers and will be probably better at doing backups and redundant systems than you are. The server in the back of your office, has everybody taken their backup this week? They've got a weekly backup when you get to the office. If it's crashed, you're all protected and ready? Okay. There's a few nods there that's at least giving me some comfort, but as I say, in the cloud, a lot of that is taken care from you. There's changing your systems, huge challenge to yourself and learning new skills, but also to your clients. You're going to have to get them used to the idea, train them on new systems and stuff, so that the technology is always less than half of the task of making that transition. It's the people and process things, how you actually just get people to do things right. And dare I say it, the tools you might want to use aren't quite ready. They're poised on the horizon. So they're almost now the thing that I hate most about the new everything thing is, have you noticed you've got a Gmail address, an Apple address, your BT address? They all want to take over your entire life. You'll open a browser, you'll open Internet Explorer to test something out in a new browser. It wants to be your default browser, and it wants to be, all these people want to control you guys. You can be stuck if you make the wrong choices. One choice, you may be stuck with lots of different incompatible systems. So again, those old timers of us here, it used to be utilities. You'd go to the telephone company. Just you had one choice. It didn't work very well, or it'd take you 6 months to get a data line installed, but you didn't have to spend half of your life trying to find out which was the best one to get. And as I say, there's these great territorial battles being fought. So you may find you're faced with these choices, and going with the Mac operating system could constrain you, when it comes to choosing your business applications. Although, thanks to virtualization, you can always also just run a virtual Windows machine in your Mac and carry on running your Windows-based software. So you can find a way around it. But as I say, just the nightmare of choice actually is one of the problems, and it's making sure at the back end when you try and bring everything together that you've got a coherent strategy, that those different systems you've chosen really do talk to each other and make your life convenient. Having to jump between different browsers and tools, and then actually probably finding that you pretty much got to cut and paste data from one to the other. That's not what automation and what So make these informed choices, and you can quite easily jump ship later on when something comes better. But always try and think a step ahead. If I do this and I want to do that in 3 months, will this system grow? If I buy this application now and my firm really does grow 50, 100% in the next 2-3 years, will I be able to afford that? So there you are. Take an interest. My principles of the future is don't be frightened of technology, but again, maybe don't be seduced by it, and spend your life devoted to serving technology rather than it serving you. So go in with your eyes open and know, sort of know what you want to do as a firm and as a business, and start finding the technology solutions that fit your strategy and your strategy for the next 3 to 5 years. Again, build it from what you've got now. How long can you stick with that server-based system? At some point, anticipate it's going to become redundant or too expensive to maintain. So keep an idea. Use today to find out what options you could jump to. I just like the idea of moving at your own pace. Just because everyone here is saying, cloud, it is so cool. Yeah, it's the cool thing to use. Don't ever use anything that's because it's cool. Does it feel right to you, and do you like using it? Does it make you more productive? Also, try things out. Sometimes, again, Twitter. I think many Twitter accountants here. Tweeters. No. I got one trick from someone who says what they do around. You have to want to have sort of the kind of deadbeat kind of clients who will come to you in January. But one person I know just searches for tax return on Twitter in January, and every time they see that, they'll tweet back to us and say, if you're finding a trouble with it, I'm here to help, come along. And they pick up, use Twitter as direct business development that way. So try things out like that. If it works, great, adopt it, use it, integrate it. But if it doesn't, it'll be over in in a couple of years' time. It'll just be so over, and you'll have to be on Snapchat to get 10-second instant referrals and things. So that is basically the message. Do your own thing, and this is the option. We have a microphone, and people will move among you if you want to ask any questions. But again, on the I've got a few of my own questions that came out of that talk. I've given you choices up here. You can be a technology enthusiast. You don't have to say your age. You could be a pragmatist of the kind I'm trying to say. You could be a downright skeptic, or are you a digital native and you're all over this stuff already? So do we have any enthusiasts in the room? The old, okay, 25% to the button. How about digital natives? Have we got any digital natives? Good to hear. Okay, and are you totally cloud for your practice and your accounting tools? There. Yeah. Is that on?
No, got the cloud, yeah.
Yep, okay. So he's gone totally,
Now, or you can just wait. What time
he's
is it?
gone with Microsoft 365 and
Why don't you-
a,
John, why don't you go now?
iPads, yep, okay, good to hear, okay.
Campaign or
Um,
coffee?
and
What do you
again, what about our Generation X
Go on in.
people? This,
Watch it, they will just
okay,
not
those-
let you through.
okay, we have a Generation X enthusiast here. So that's actually quite helpful. You sort of kind of coming up in the roughly the demographics. So do we have any outright technology skeptics? Have I? No, you wouldn't be here if you were a total skeptic. And again, we talked about the cloud adoption. I would commend you to pay attention to the couple of accountants here who are using cloud as a collaborative platform. Because I do think from all the evidence we've seen in our Practice Excellence Awards, that is a future. Now, Claire is. Have you got any other questions?
Do you have any questions?
Yeah,
So
here we go.
there's a trick to this. You need to talk into the microphone so everyone can hear you. But John needs to hear you as well. Otherwise, it's a bit complicated. But just talk to both of us.
Hello.
Sorry.
My question is about collaboration, and a previous speaker in this theatre was talking about outsourcing work to places like Bangladesh, because of the technology enabling that, and obviously it's driving your costs down, our profits up.
Yep.
I just wondered if you had any ideas about the future of that, because that, to me, that sounds interesting, but how the hell do you actually do that?
Okay, well, you do that. People are doing it. You create the first thing. I probably skimmed over the idea of document portals. They're becoming. That was last year's trendy thing. But so rather than using email, you just have a cloud store that you and the client can load. You and the people carrying out the work. And that outsourcer could be in Bangladesh, could be in Newbury, or could be in an office, working from home, someone who comes in and out and works. The technology's there, so have a portal, have a central store. You want a distributed application, so possibly quite a lot of people would use a hosted environment. So would use your classic Sage Practice Suite that they run on a terminal server there as well. And then they access, so you will probably give them documents, they access and do all the data entry. So the technology is there. I know firms doing it in IE TaxGuard uses it's a real stack 'em high, pile up, sell 'em cheap tax return service. Have built the entire infrastructure around it. It's not the technology is the problem. You just choose the tools and you probably have several tools. They will probably, if there's enough outsourcers around, who will just say, just send us what you got. Whatever you use, we've got it here. The advanced track, that's very much their model. The real challenge is the oversight, the quality of the review. It's the human management, human systems. So you're going to have to spend as much time recruiting. A lot of people do like to go meet face to face, look at the qualification, interview and check the professional qualifications of the people who will be doing the work, and you've got to train them, you've got to review their work, and be able to do that remotely. So that's a challenge. I mean, the thing also though, you sort of set service level agreements, is treat it just like any other outsourcing. So you will do this by then. So you've got KPIs, measure them, and act on them. So when something starts looking like it's slipping, pick it up fast, or it will continue to slip. That's it. So it's the personal dynamics, but you're just running. You'd probably do all that in the office, but it's just learning to manage by results rather than your direct personal influence.
Okay. John?
Yep.
Hi. I'm trying to reconcile in my practice at the moment the sort of overlap between, we've got a document management system which is currently server-based, and we've got going cloud-hosted on the roadmap, but we want to take a bit of time. We're using a number of cloud accounting solutions, Xero, NetSuite. that we're now storing transaction files in there. But I'm trying to work out how I integrate a full-on document management system with the sort of data storage capabilities in cloud accounting systems and ultimately have it all in the cloud. So just wondering how you see those two markets working and coming together, if indeed they will come together.
Okay. This is a question, you may not have noticed her, this is one of our pioneering generations. This lady's actually pushing at the cutting edge, and she's got a classic fragmentation challenge with multiple different data types. The document management, you need a vendor who's going to do, or it would be lovely if there were vendors who could just integrate all of that for you and make it compatible, although that does sort of push you into territory where it's almost like this is the lock-in danger. If you just sell your soul to the one vendor, they do exist. I think that, you can find them. No, someone who will configure the Owen company everything you ever needed to do the document management. I didn't hear that. Yeah, I didn't. It just. Yeah. Yeah. So there are vendors who are not on these ladies' roadmap. So then it's looking for the most. Some of them have APIs, so you can get or because it's not just, you're talking about not just documents, but it's the live data almost. So it's a database tables. You want a document management's all about the raw. It's the documents within things. Yeah. Okay. So it's documents not in this account. So you want your cloud or your practice management system to have so it's finding a connection at the practice management to document management point, so those two can talk together. And at the moment you'll need to find people who possibly can configure APIs in your accounting systems as you do, that you can put in a send to document management store. Now, so a lot of the specialist document management tools will have kind of a send to function, or actually working from a portal. If you can sort of do an export. Okay. So, as I say, this is when you're a pioneer, you're the one who gets the arrows in your back. So there is a gap. Like I say, there's some big names. Talk to portal people or very advanced practice software suppliers. Yeah. Thank you. I think I'd better stop talking now, but thank you all for coming, and see you next year. I promise I'll change some.
Thank you, John.